Jazzcast Pros.
I think the number one thing that you can do and thing you have to learn as an entrepreneur is how to listen to yourself and shut down the outside noise. If you are doing anything in your business because other people told you you should, or you feel like that's how other people are doing it, or just taking in too much feedback from the outside world versus looking intrinsically, you're doing yourself, your customers, and your business a disservice. Today, my conversation with Amanda Loucks is amazing, and we talk all about how to look inward and how to find inward perspective, how to listen to your gut. But Amanda just has incredible stories and wisdom to share on looking internally and finding that inner voice and how to listen to it. So again, I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned, and I see it repeatedly with my clients in the mastermind around listening to self versus, the ego and the outside. And that is when your business really changes because you really change. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the cautiously ambitious woman, remove mental barriers and take action now so that you can achieve your high vibe desires. I'm Rashawn, your high vibe curator, cheerleader, and accountability partner. As a wife, a mother, and an entrepreneur who recently quit my job to follow my dreams, I understand why you may be hesitant to throw caution to the wind and take that leap. And if you've been enjoying my content, I would love if you left a review, share this episode with somebody who maybe needs to hear this message today. Without further ado, let's talk to Amanda. Our first in-person interview. Woo! Thank you so much to Amanda. Thank you to The Hive, which is where we are recording today. So thank you, Chelsea, for letting us use your space. And so obviously, since you're in person, you are from Rochester. But Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and just let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I am an entrepreneur. I am a traveler. I love dogs and coffee, and I'm very excited to be here today. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. One thing that we really connected on was manifesting and that idea of working in conjunction with the universe to design the life that you want to live. So how were you introduced to manifesting?
It's so interesting because I think even before I was consciously aligned or in tune with manifesting in and of itself, I had been doing things for a long time that just flowed. So when I think of manifesting, I think of so many different words that align with that. Does it flow? Is it in alignment? Is it high vibration? Do I feel like I'm following my conscience, my inner voice, my true inner being? And so I was introduced to that formally several years ago via a book by Melody Fletcher and a podcast called The Lively Show. And so The Lively Show really helped me get in tune with accessing that inner self and understanding better how to sort of ask for things and move forward with that law of attraction and manifestation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of times, like when I talk about manifesting and the law of attraction, it can feel kind of like woo-woo, and I feel like people are either into talking and hearing about it, or they're like, no. But I think there are so many interchangeable words, whether you believe in God, whether you are religious, whether you think it is the universe or God or higher power or whatever, like it means for you.
Yes. Like whatever greater than ourselves kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you like kind of felt it, but then had a deeper introduction with those books, that book and the podcast. So you're talking about your conscience and your inner, it's a hard word to say.
We both messed that up.
So how do you know when you're listening to that voice versus your ego? Because they can sound sometimes like the same thing, even though I think the ego is trying to keep us safe and small, whereas your higher self is trying to pull you into alignment.
Yes. I love that question, and I love how you phrased all of that. And that's exactly it. I think the times when the ego is really definitive and sensitive to things or gets really defensive, that's when I feel like my ego has come out and is like, nope, it's this or that. It's very black and white. There's no curiosity. There's no gray area. There's no expansion of, well, it doesn't have to be this or that. It could be so many other things. And so I think when I find myself spiraling into the dichotomy of this or that, and my mind is very black and white, I think, okay, there's no curiosity here. There's no question. So then I start asking myself questions. So I did this morning on the way here, actually. There was a frustrating situation that happened, and I thought my brain made these very definitive decisions. And then I realized, okay, there aren't enough questions here. So could we have a different conversation about this? And I'm like, yes, probably. And so when I feel that, okay, yes, probably, then I feel myself truly shift back into a more aligned feeling, a more aligned mindset.
So many conversations that we have on this podcast is about listening to inner, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think for me, a lot of my 20s was like seeking other validation, outside opinions versus turning inward. And I think that when it's your ego, it feels constrictive and tight and, like you said, black and white, and there is no ease. And I love the idea of curiosity and like, how can I frame this differently, which feels light and airy and flowing. And so what I hear from you is really about turning inward and how does my body really feel when I'm asking these questions.
And I think that's another signal too, that we're coming from the ego, is when we are looking for that external validation, when we are thinking, okay, I just need to bounce this off of somebody. Okay, I need a second opinion. Okay, I need, XYZ. When, yes, sometimes that is really nice to talk to a friend, phone a friend and talk through whatever it is that's going on. And again, so relevant. I was feeling like that this morning and immediately thought, but I know the answer. But I really, if I'm quiet and really listen in, I know the answer.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful place to be in. And I think that manifesting is a muscle and you have to practice it. And we can all get away from being out of practice. And so do you have any tips of grounding practices or manifesting practices that you use that help you get back into that space?
For me, in the times where I feel really spirally, which sidebar, when I think of the people who I follow who it seems like they're always in alignment. And when I hear them speak and they talk about a time when they were spiraling and a time when, they felt like the ego is taking over, it's so validating to know that it's not just the people who are very high vibe and frequently in alignment and know how to easily tap into that. It's, they're just a regular person too. So that's really encouraging. But for me, I would say, I really try to quiet my mind, envision the ego, the mind, all of the noise. I envision it almost on a whiteboard and then just erase it. So it's gone. And that visualization specifically has really helped me. I tried putting it in a bubble and blowing it away, but then it felt like it was going to pop somewhere and then I would hear all the noise again, or shutting the door. But then, okay, when I open it again, I'm going to hear all the noise again. So putting it on a whiteboard and erasing it was the most mind-clearing way for me. And then just asking questions. And the Lively Show advised, this is where I got this from, was asking, am I safe? Am I loved? And when when I really start to hear the answers to those of yes, and the warmth and the light kind of internally, that's when I feel myself, my breathing evens and my mind relaxes. And so I feel like that helps me get back into that space.
Yeah, that's a really cool visualization. I've never heard that before. So that's really cool. One thing that I've struggled with in the past is pivots. And a lot of that is connected to my ego and feeling like when I pivot, I have failed. And it's that balance of like, if I keep pushing, this will work out versus if I pivot, that was towards the right path. And I don't love using the word right path because I don't think there's a wrong path, a wrong decision, a wrong way to get anywhere. But is there a pivot that you've had in your past that you feel was really powerful and has led you to where you are today?
I think it's so important to know when to pivot in the right moment and when something is no longer serving us. And something I really learned to do that from was through the Desire Map. So the Desire Map by Danielle Laporte is this process where you set goals based on how you want to feel. Essentially looking at all of these different areas of your life and digging into how you can start feeling that way now. You don't have to wait for this arbitrary goal. Set this thing that you think is going to make you happy just to get there, and it doesn't actually make you feel the way you thought it would. So for me, knowing that when something is no longer serving its purpose, the goal is not fulfilling me in a way that I expected it to, that's when I really start looking at, okay, I think it's time for me to change directions. It's time to pivot. And several years ago, I was working in a job that I had really loved. I still, even when I left, I really loved the people that I worked with. And I had a purpose for working at this position. It helped me get my master's degree, which was wonderful. And it got to a point where I left every day feeling upset and exhausted. And it did not make me feel the way I wanted to feel. And so I talked to my boyfriend at the time, now husband, and I said, this is how I'm feeling. And he's like, then maybe it's time to go. Like, just go. And I don't know if at that point in time I needed that, external permission to be like, oh my gosh, like I can just go. And so I ended up quitting the job with a very weak security net reason from what I felt like. I had someone who she said, oh yeah, I can, I'll contract you out to do a little bit of work and whatever. And I was like, okay, that's I have to leave now because I'm going to do this other thing. And that ended up not totally working out, but that was okay too, because it got me on this completely different path that felt so aligning and so much more in tune with who I am. And ultimately it led me to my next position where I met my business partner, and she's someone who, when I had a baby, I'm like, everyone needs a crystal because she has helped me survive the last year plus. So sometimes it just kind of sneaks up on you and you don't realize, or you look back and think about how many times we may have pivoted. It's just a small pivot.
A lot of times things can check all the right boxes.
Yes.
And you feel like, well, this thing was great and these people are great, but why am I still leaving every day? And you and I talked earlier about one of my positions before where I had all the right things in place, and yet still every day I was growing more and more animosity towards this position. And it felt like, how dare I? There are so many people who would love to be in this position, and I'm upset at it. And it just, again, I think that's listening to the ego and the spiral.
Yes. I was just going to say classic ego. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Who do you have the audacity to want something different? And this is fine.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what a wonderful way to really listen to yourself and know that, okay, even though this checks all these boxes, this doesn't feel like the right thing for me. It's not in alignment for me. And something I've heard is alignment is alignment, not alignment is not alignment, which sounds very simple, but when you're, really looking at it, if it's not alignment, if it's kind of almost alignment, that's not alignment.
That's really, really good. So I always say that entrepreneurship is very confronting. It makes you sit with yourself a lot. Another experience that you and I share is motherhood, which is, again, very confronting. So how do you find harmony in those two identities? And tell me all your secrets, because 8 years and I still don't know how.
I'm about a year into both. Yep. So I don't have all the secrets, but something that I found early on is that I would try to work on the business while I was still hanging out with my son full time. And right before he started going to daycare, I was like, oh, he's, I don't know, 4 months. Starts moving around a lot at 4 months, which I did not expect. Lots of like attention needing. He's not a potato anymore. So I felt like the potato stage is way too short, in my opinion, given how much time they spend walking and moving around. But that's all right. I think for me, when I was trying to work and also wanting to give him my full attention and wanting to give my work its full attention, I felt like I was half-assing both things. And I was not fully present for either one. And when I took some time, it was after bedtime, I didn't log back on. And I thought, okay, this isn't working. We need to pivot a little.
Yeah.
How do I do this so that it works? So I don't feel drained and completely unproductive.
Right.
In everything.
Yep.
And so I decided, okay, when I'm on mom duty, I am 100% on mom duty. I'm not trying to edit a PDF. Or edit a PowerPoint. I'm not trying to take a call or sort things through, even though my business partner and I could, easily chat on the phone and talk things through. I'm still distracted. I'm still wanting to focus on what she's saying. I'm still wanting to hang out and spend quality time with my son. And by doing both, I'm not doing either thing well. So when he's sick, I need to take some calls. My husband and I tag team, and he taps into dad duty. I take my calls. When he has to be on his calls, I tap back into mom duty. And we balance that really well. So I think focusing completely and allowing myself guilt-free to focus on my work lets me parent better, because then I'm not trying to think about my work while I'm parenting, and giving my full attention to him and filling that cup while I'm parenting allows me to do better work, because I'm not wondering if I'm neglecting to be there for him and enjoy that time with him while, he's so little and I have this time.
Yeah.
And I think too, setting the boundary of I'm not logging back on after bedtime. So obviously there are exceptions to every rule. I'm not someone who likes to follow all the rules all the time. So I appreciate some flexibility in the rules that I set for myself.
Yeah.
So, if there's something incredibly pressing that ultimately tomorrow am I going to be very stressed that I didn't do this today? Then I'll take care of it. Or am I so excited about this thing? I just want to jump in and I need to brain dump it because I can't stop thinking about it. Sure, I'll jump back on. But my rule of thumb is really, is this going to energize me? So when I log on tomorrow, I'm so excited and I feel refreshed. Or when I log on, am I going to think, I feel like I just logged off and I had no time to reset and fill my cup back up, even if that's with, trash reality shows on Netflix.
Right. There's so much there around, like when you were first talking about it's either alignment or it's not alignment. You're either present or you're not present.
Yes.
You can't be like half or 75% present. Then you're not fully present. And there's so much guilt as an entrepreneur. There's so much guilt as a mom of like not doing enough, not being there enough, not being enough. Same thing with entrepreneurship. Like I was listening to a panel last night from Bossy, another local networking group. And one of the entrepreneurs on the panel was talking about how she felt a lot of guilt around if she would ever take a break from her business, and she was being a bad business owner and not giving every second and ever like taking her mind off of it. And I think that does a disservice to our business. It does a disservice to us. It does a disservice to the people in our lives. And so, again, I think it's a practice of like, I'm taking this hat off. It needs to go get its rest. I heard a metaphor from someone sometime, and they were talking about like the garden metaphor of like, if you always sat and watered your plants, they would be like oversaturated. They need time to rest. They need sun. They need the moon. They need all of the aspects that is nurturing. And you like hovering over them, you can over fertilize your plants very easily. And I think we're the same way. And if we try to be all the things all the time, that's where we get burnout. That's where we get not feeling in alignment with all of the aspects of ourself.
Yes, I love that. And it makes me think of this phrase that I heard once that I shared, especially when I was working with students at a university who would, like I would, totally overcommit themselves and run themselves into the ground. You can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
I love that statement because it's the sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? But focus, but choose, say yes to things, say no to things so you can say yes to other things.
Yeah. If you have more than 3 priorities, you have none, you know?
Yep.
And also like this season of motherhood is finite. You know, there are going to be different seasons, you know, like I'm in that right now where I'm coaching my daughter's lacrosse team. So a lot of evenings and weekends are busy with that. But like she scores a goal and I get to like be on the field with her. And that's really cool. And that's important to me. And I have to be able to take off my entrepreneur hat when I'm there because that's the most important thing in that moment. But also like I love the nod to a couple episodes ago, I talked about the 3 people you need to check in with when you're making decisions. And it's your current self, your past self, and your future self. And what I heard you say is like, how am I going to feel tomorrow in making this decision to open my laptop back up? Am I going to feel energized and excited, or am I going to feel exhausted and drained and like I never left? And that's like a beautiful way to live into the curiosity and your whole self. And I think that's really impressive. And again, it's a muscle. Like it's not something that anybody's perfect at.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely. Not perfect by any means, but we're all doing the best we can.
Exactly. Yes. I could talk forever, but we have one more question before we get into the lightning round questions. I like to use this analogy that there is front of the house work and back of the house work with manifesting. So if you walk into a restaurant and you order what you want, I want a veggie burger with lettuce, tomato, onion on a sourdough roll. And then it goes to the back of the house and we wait. And then it comes out and we get what we want. And a lot of times it's even better. But the waiting can be hard. How do you manage? How do you interpret signs? Like how does that waiting period feel for you?
I love that. That's so fun. And sidebar, sometimes when I'm talking to my inner voice and like feeling like I'm putting an order in, I sometimes say, Alexa, like I'm talking to her. And so, yeah, I think the times when I feel like things are cooking in the back of the house is when I feel like I'm starting to get impatient or the mind in me is starting to feel impatient and think, well, where is this? We put in the order. And it makes me take a step back and think, okay, either what I asked for was not coming from a genuine place in my inner self. You know, maybe that was coming from a place of the ego was asking for that because it thinks that that will make us feel the way we want to feel. But actually, the universe knows. And so I think when I've subconsciously put in orders, those come out, like you said, so much better than the mind could have expected it to be. And so to be in that almost limbo place is so challenging. And something I heard lately that I've been trying to practice is when you ask your inner voice, what should I be doing for XYZ? And it says nothing. Not just it doesn't respond, but it says do nothing. Do you have the courage to do nothing? And to really follow your intuition to wait? Because the waiting is absolutely the hardest part. Do it. Like I will take a longer route in my vehicle to not sit in traffic if it means that my car is still freaking moving.
So what is a must-read book for you?
Ooh, it is a tie between Untamed by Glennon Doyle and Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I know I talked about a lot of books, so.
Yeah, those are both so good. And it's funny that you say that because podcast we recorded yesterday, I talked about Untamed and a metaphor in there.
Oh, and the cheetah one?
No.
A different one. There are so many in there.
So many. What does creativity mean to you?
It is an opportunity for my brain to just turn off and I feel like that's where my subconscious just really, like, that's where I can let it all out.
Mm-hmm. And be magical.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
When you don't know what to do nothing. Just give it a day, give it a week. I have never regretted taking a moment to breathe before reacting, before responding. But I always, if I feel like I have said or done the wrong thing, regretted not taking that moment to do nothing.
Yeah, that's a good one. What is something that is on your bucket list?
Oh, this one's so hard. 10 years ago, I went to Europe and I did so many things on my bucket list, like driving a dog sled in Norway, which Norway specific was not on my bucket list, but that was a whole thing. I really want to go to one of those, you know, in all of the like desktop wallpapers, how they have the island and then they have the path and all the little like cabanas or huts or whatever that are off of the dock.
In like Bora Bora or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hypothetically. Yeah. Bora Bora. Like we haven't looked it up after seeing those pictures. Yes. With the like clear pool or you like can step into the ocean or whatever body of water it is that I want to stay in one of those for like a couple nights or a week or a month. I don't know. Like I'm putting that out to the universe. Any indeterminate amount of time. I would be happy to visit one of those.
So when we host a retreat, that's where it's going to be.
Heck yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Hypothetically, Bora Bora. And we will have a whole dock of huts.
Yep. I like it. And what is the coolest shit you've done in the last year or are currently working on?
Ooh, my business just turned a year old within the last few days, which is really exciting. Yay. I think that's probably it between like raising a very new child and launching a business was pretty cool. We're creating more online course content. We launched a course a few months ago and are working on a podcast as well. So lots of very fun things.
Yeah. The fact that you have both of these entities in their infancy and are doing both of them at the same time is just, you're superwoman.
Oh, I am very much in the camp of we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So it's keeping that balance. And I don't know, someone told me recently, if you're not spending 12 hours a day on your new business, then you're not doing enough. And I was like, F that hustle mindset. I am I think absolutely there is a time and a place to work really hard and not run ourselves in the ground.
Yeah.
There is time to devote ourselves to our business, but that doesn't mean we have to function on an empty cup just to get it going. And to that end, does it feel good to run ourselves into the ground for something that really doesn't love us back? To me, that just feels like there's got to be a better way.
Yes, 1,000%. Well, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
Was so wonderful.
Rashawn, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here, and this was so fun to talk about.
Yeah, and thanks for being my guinea pig on my first in-person interview.
Always about it.
Awesome.
Yay. Bye, Jazzy.
How great was that conversation? Amanda is just like, she was brought into my life by the universe. Again, this episode may have felt a little woo-woo, but I just love everything that she's doing. All of her stories are just so beautiful and impactful. And, you know, whether you believe in the power of manifestation, you believe in universal energy, listening to your gut and listening to your intuition, that is never woo-woo. That is like so impactful, so important. And so DM me on Instagram if you got a little nugget out of here. I would love to just get some feedback because this was such a cool conversation. We could have talked forever. We talked like before we recorded for a while. We've been talking after. Like she is cool. Make sure you go follow her on her socials as well. Thank you so much for listening. And remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.
The greatest.